My name is Chris Durso. We're here at the Misfit tour in Houston, Texas.
Cool, and this is named after the book that you wrote. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the tour and what the book's about for people that aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, God gave me the concept about 3 years ago of Misfit. I'm a youth pastor in New York City. Under Christ Tabernacle, I lead a ministry called Youth Explosion Ministries. And God gave me this, just allowed me to see the word misfit, gave us a definition, and our kids just really related to it once we introduced it to them. And we thought it was just an event. We just thought it was going to be one night, and it just really stuck. So we said, all right, we'll do another event. But it really became more part of the culture than it was a theme. To the point now where 3 years ago it's still going. You know, kids have changed their Twitter names and Facebook pages, and at that time MySpace, which rest in peace MySpace. But yeah, I mean, just identifying themselves as a misfit. A misfit is one who's uncomfortable with his or her surroundings and is seen to be disturbingly different than others. And the whole premise of it is we as Christians should feel like misfits. We should feel uncomfortable with our surroundings. In 1 Corinthians 4:10, Jesus says that we are his misfits. We're the Messiah's misfits. So with that said, I mean, it's more than a trendy term, it's biblical truth. So for us, this is why we're still with it. Zondervan approached me and they asked me to write a book. When they asked me to write a book, I was trying to figure out, I was praying, I was like, God, what should I write a book on? And it wasn't like they said, hey, let's write a book on Misfit. They just said, oh, I want you to write a book. We want to publish it. So I came up with the idea of Misfit, or I already had it, and I just thought to myself, man, I would love to make a book that just allows young Christians, next generation leaders, now generation leaders, whether they're 14, 18, 25, 29, I mean, that's the target, high school young adults, to just really help them through life, but speak it in a way that they can understand. There's a lot of great books out there, but they're not really written creatively. For some people, they can't stay with it. I know growing up, I didn't read many books. Not that the content wasn't great, it just didn't captivate my attention. So that was my heart, man, with writing Misfit. And then also my heart with it was, well, I don't want to just write a book because this thing feels bigger than a book or even me. And I don't want to make it about Chris Durso. I would love to do a soundtrack. So I teamed up with my boy James Gabriel, who's a phenomenal producer, and I said, let's do a 10-song soundtrack, each song matching a chapter in the book. There's 10 chapters in the book. So I just reached out to my friends, and on the soundtrack, I mean, there's a plethora of artists, and it's not just hip hop. There's Mia Fields from Hillsong United, and Canton Jones is on it. Molly Music is on it. But Double Edge is on it, and you got all these other people, Juniper, Boy Pilot, I mean, that just have these different sounds. Jay is on it. So we put it together, and then shortly after, T.R.U.T.'s manager, Jessie Thompson, she reached out to me, and she manages Ambassador and T.R.U.T., said, hey, I would love to do a tour. And we were kind of mulling it over, trying to figure out who we should invite to be on the tour. Oriah, who is a poet, she's a spoken word artist, she's on my team, she's out of Youth Explosion, she's a great leader there, she preaches there. So I said, man, I would love for Oriah to be on it. They said, yeah, without a doubt, it's a no-brainer, which having me as a preacher and her as a spoken word artist, it just already made it different, as opposed to just being a tour with a whole bunch of music. And when dreaming up this tour, I just said, man, I don't want this just to be a tour. I don't want it just to be a concert. I want this to be such a great experience where people get a little bit of everything, and it's just going to compel them to want to live out their Christianity, their misfitness. Misfit is really just another word for being a Christian. It's like hiding the vegetables in the pizza. We just want to make sure you consume it and that you're full. But then talking about it, I was like, man, I want Molly. Me and Molly have ministered a whole bunch of different places together prior to this. And I mean, I'm a fan. He's one of my close friends. I love him. And I said, man, I want Molly Music to be on it. And Molly stepped up, and he was a part of it. Originally, Canton, shout out to Canton. Canton was supposed to be on the tour, but it just didn't work out with his scheduling because he was already booked for the year. But yeah, I mean, it turned out great because Sean Simmons is on it. He's a part of the Exist family, which is T.R.U.T. and Ambassador, the label that they're on. Myself, Oriah, Molly, we're not a part of Exist. But we're family now, so it's just been phenomenal. And then depending on the city, there's been different add-ons. We just had a guy named Freddie Washington, who has definitely more of a CCM flair, and now just joining us tonight. We got B. Wright. I'm excited about that. KJ52 is going to be meeting up with us in a couple of weeks. That's going to be dope. Because it's not about Youth Explosion. It's not just about New York. It's about the kingdom. And for us, I mean, we just want to reach whoever.
Yeah.
We just want to share with them the gospel. So yeah, it's been incredible.
Cool. How'd you get into the hip hop side of things? Is that a music that you personally appeals to you, or to the kids that you're involved with, or both? Or
yeah. Well, I mean, before I was a Christian, I was definitely really big into hip hop. I was growing up in New York City, you really have no other choice, right? But yeah, I mean, I loved hip hop, and then just growing up within a youth ministry. My brother was my youth pastor for about 11 years, and growing up in that, I mean, that's when we started our ministry. Was when Cross Movement started out. I mean, Cross Movement has been coming to us, to Youth Explosion, forever. I mean, Truth before he was the Truth, guys like Lecrae before they were Lecrae, Tripoli, they've been coming out forever. So we have a good rapport, good relationship with them, and we want to speak to the youth as they can understand, and they listen through hip hop. Some of it may not be some of the stuff that I prefer. Some of it might be. I'm a little bit more into worship now, but I want to reach the youth. So if I got to use heavy metal, I'm going to use heavy metal. I just want to make sure that they get the message.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of what's going on. There's so many great guys, talented guys doing it within New York, Jersey, Philly area. Shout out to all you guys doing it. Richie Righteous, they're killing it. But they have a way about them that they could speak to this generation in a way that they can understand. So I'm all about that. I just want to reach them. I want to reach the lost. Yeah.
And did I understand recently you had a health scare with one of your children, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. How he's doing now, and how that kind of interrupted your life, and that kind of started right around when you were doing the Misfit kickoff stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, even before the tour. I mean, I've just been traveling a lot this year. Not on Fridays, because I try to be at home as much as possible, because I'm a pastor first and I'll travel second, but it can't get in the way of what I'm supposed to be doing first. I'm a pastor. But yeah, so it was funny. I was supposed to be in Canada on this one particular week. It was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and God just told me to turn it down. And I love this church. I've been there before. I love the pastors. I was excited about getting out there and being with them and preaching. But God told me not to go. So I told my wife, and I said, listen, God told me not to go. I'm going to cancel. She said, okay, we got to cancel. We got to do it. I mean, so the day I was supposed to leave, I'm home with my son, and he wakes up with a busted lip. And we just thought, all right, maybe he bit himself while he was sleeping. He's 4 years old. He could be a little hyper. But then later on that night, we just noticed out of nowhere, within 20 minutes, he had fallen asleep. But just something caused my wife to want to just check up on him. He had bruises all over his face. He looked like he had been in a gang fight. And he had sores in his mouth. And it was the scariest thing ever. So right away we brought him to the emergency room. They let us know that he had low blood platelets. Typically your blood platelets are anywhere from 350,000 to 450,000, something like that. And his blood platelets on the first night was at 18,000. So it was really low. So they said, all right, don't worry, we'll give him medicine, he'll be fine. Next day it was even lower. Right after that morning, they said, all right, don't worry, we'll just do this to him and he'll be okay. Now all of a sudden it's at 3,000. And we were in a whirlwind, because now they're saying words like leukemia. They're saying this can be fatal, and everything just switched. And man, I thank God for social media, because I was letting everyone know what was going on. I was asking people to pray, and churches around the world. There was a church in Peru that held an all-night prayer meeting for my son Dylan. Brooklyn Tabernacle had 4,000 people praying for Dylan in their prayer meeting. My church had multiple prayer meetings going on, plus a 24-hour hotline where you can call in and pray. And they were praying for Dylan. Carl Lentz of Hillsong NYC had his whole staff and team pray, sent me videos. My boy Rich Wilkerson Jr. out of Miami, it happened to be on a Tuesday. That's when his service is, and there's like 1,400 young adults. He called me on the phone, put it up, and I just hear 1,400 young adults start to pray. And then another friend of mine out on the West Coast named Chad Beach, he calls me with a pastor friend of his who I've known about but never met, named Pastor Jude. And Pastor Jude just says, I want to pray for you, and I want you to know that your son's going to be healed by the morning. And I believed what he said. I mean, something just sparked in my heart. I'm hysterical crying. We go to sleep. Surely that next morning, we wake up, and Dylan's blood platelets are now at 200,000. then by the next day at 550,000, which didn't make sense. I mean, the doctors came in and they said, oh, this is only God. This had nothing to do with our medicine, and the doctors blamed it on God. The nurses blamed it on God. They were all hysterical in our room with our son, and it was just amazing. And what blew me away was just to see the glory of God and how He healed my son, and he's healthy. He's great. He's running around. They're telling us not to worry about anything because he's gotten a whole bunch of checkups and he's fine.
Yeah.
So man, I mean, the tour. Every other speaking engagement I had, I was, because at that point you're not really too concerned about any of it. You just care about the well-being of your child, and whatever you got to do to, John Hewitt, you're gonna have to do it. You know what I mean? To make sure that he's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else? Where can people get the book or find you online?
Yeah, you can get the book Misfit at Amazon.com, Borders, Barnes & Noble, Zondervan.com. You can get it for your iPad. You can get it off iTunes. You can get it for the Nook. So it's pretty accessible. You can get it wherever you need to. Off the tour site, misfittour.net, youthexplosion.com, christtabernacle.org. You can get in all those places. If you want to follow me, at Chris Durso, I'm on Twitter. Pastor Chris Durso on Facebook. I am still on MySpace. I haven't canceled that one out. I'll check it occasionally. But yeah, I would love to connect, love to talk, love to hear why you're a misfit. And shout out to the South and Sketch and all you guys doing. I appreciate you guys.